กูกำลังโพสต์ให้ โอเคนะครับ Hello everyone. It has been a very packed week. So like this is the last discussion. Oh. So today I would like to present like one of the British Council project artists, Anothai Nitibhon, who just like present her work with her colleagues, students, as well as friends, performers, with the work title Live Around for 9 performers, which we have been working together with the software called Sonobus, as well as try to listen each other by playing some sound files, exchanging some knowledge, some idea. So that for today, I'm very proud to present Anothai as well as other people in this discussion. So today we're gonna talk in kind of bilingual, sometime Thai, sometime English. So please bear with us. So I would like to just give this stage to Anothai to maybe talk about herself and also the piece, and then we can have like a kind of like general discussion about the piece. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Piyawat, for your introductions, and thank you also for involving us in this wonderful project. So here you see together with us today is my colleagues and also students at PGM Institute of Music. And what's interesting about what we have just finished is the piece which is called Life Around. And I'm not sure whether it should be called a piece, but it at least is an experiment that we want to try to kind of like bring soundscape from Bangkok, in the lockdown Bangkok, to our audiences from anywhere in the world that you are at the moment. And you might have heard some of the familiar sound. If you have been to Bangkok sometimes in the past, you hear all these sounds of the constructions, which possibly not only limited to Bangkok, but it's also from some other places as well. And you see the sounds of, you can hear the sounds of a cat, you can hear the sounds of the birds that is really local to this area. So the concept of the work is more or less about that during the times of COVID and during the time of the lockdown, all of us are confined into our own space. And as a musicians, especially our students here, we always kind of like struggle because we can't play our instrument. So as a musicians, what kind of instrument does it belong to us? And of course, I think in my experience, our ears can also be our immediate instruments, right? And you might find yourself as a musician wander around your space, listening to different kind of sounds around the house and try to make it into a piece of music. And this is exactly the ideas of this piece. So what happened is that I have these colleagues of mine and the students contributing a sonic postcard from their own areas and collecting those sonic postcard and then edited, selected it, and put it together as a kind of like web page. And all these sounds will be divided into 9 houses. And each of these players selecting their own sounds and responding, playing those sounds in response to other things that was played back to them. So this is just to kind of like make simulations of a sonic landscape within Thailand, within Bangkok at those time. And maybe one point that is quite important to me is that maybe try to encourage the musicians that our instrument is not only limited to something that we can hold and make sounds, but our ears is also a very crucial instrument that we can play with. And maybe let's hear from some of our colleagues here that any one of you that would like to share about what kind of sounds or what kind of sonic postcard you have sent me, and maybe just a meaning that you would like to maybe tell about it. May I project it to Patrapon, please? what kind of sound have you sent me? And is there any meaning for those sounds?
So the first one is the construction sound. Yeah.
Yes.
So first of all, Anothai told me to collect some sound that like we hearing a lot during the lockdown, during the quarantine, COVID situation. So when I sleep in my bedroom, I heard the construction uh, around my house, and I feel like, oh yeah, there's something that really really loud, and and it's also some kind of interesting sound as well. They have a rhythmic. They have something that, yeah, maybe it could be some great material for this piece. So I collect it. Yeah.
And I recall that you mentioned about all this construction, and it's quite interesting that not only you send the construction sound, there are few people who actually kind of like send the same sound. And I know that some of you are living in the same area, and you hear all this construction sound in a completely different dimensions in some way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember you sent another sound, which is you typing in something you mentioned.
Yes, I am. Uh, I'm typing randomly
In
on my keyboard
frustration.
and
Yeah.
recording. Yes.
I think you mentioned that he put in a name that typing
Oh,
randomly in frustration, right?
yes.
So somehow, I mean, sounds that we collect is not only a kind of like has its physical quality, but it's also emotional quality that's attached, and the stories that attached to it as well. So it is nice that when I kind of like put together all these things, and each of you sort of like tell me the stories of those sounds. And can I ask who's playing those typing sound? Do you remember? Is any one of you? I think we have another players, Shatkun,
I think
who's
it's Mon, but
performing.
she's not here.
Yeah, but she's not here with
Yeah.
us. So it's the ideas of actually one sound transferring to other people, and then the story is also being transferred as well. Is any of you play your own sound in the recording that we just heard? มีใครเล่นเสียงที่ตัวเองทำไหมคะส่งมาให้ไหมจำได้ไหม Not really.
Yes, I sang the water sound, and
Yes.
the reason that I sing this sound because I cook every day in the evening, and I just hearing this sound every day, so I sing it.
So it's become your everyday life. That's really your
Yes,
soundscape
it's my
somehow.
habit.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is a habit, and it's
Yes,
also
in the lockdown.
And this is possibly one of the common sounds that we all hear, the sounds of water. But I think we have kind of like 4 different sounds of waters that's being sent by you guys, and it's
Yeah.
all different, which is quite interesting that even the sounds of water of our normal activities can also be different as well. And when you play it, I mean, can I ask Sakda, because I know that you are really a performer in this one, because now
Yes.
you're receiving all these sonic postcards. So what was your experience?
I think the piece quite sound of the world, my into mind, because every sound that it makes is all around us. Yeah, it's. I think how to say it? Interesting for me. Yeah, because you record every sound allow your and put in your area and play together. Yeah, it made a new sound. I think quite interesting.
And every time we play it, it's always different, isn't it?
Yes.
ขอบคุณค่ะ Thank you very much, Sakda. So thank you for being a performer in this experiment as well. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, To Yosagon and Supamongkon, from your experience collecting all these sounds and playing back, experiencing it, both as a performer and also as a listener?
For me, I think actually everybody have like individual sound in life, in habit, right? And and actually I send the sound of water because I have to make the tea. It have uh, it have to it have interesting sound from the water, like
You were stirring.
yes, like when I make it cold, when I bottle the water.
So it's the sounds of not only water but metals and glass as well, right?
Glass.
So it's a combinations of materials. So I can hear from your recording that you were playing with it, and you sort of like try to make music when you when you recorded it. So this is a good experience in a way that when you approach certain objects and sort of like pay more attention to making sounds, and it become a piece of music. Wonderful.
And sometimes I make a bubble like the of the water and new experience.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. ขอบคุณค่ะ Yosagon. That's wonderful. Yes, I can hear a lot of compositions coming from your sound. Yes, thank you. And Supamongkon, anything you'd like to add? And Sirapop as well, please.
Yeah, but first of all, the voices that I have been assigned are not mine. But even if it was someone else's voice, but it made me realize that they were voice all around me as well. It was interesting that I was able to practice food with this sound for 10 years. From my point of view, I think it is very, how can I say that, gratifying that we human beings can create music such this situation. And of course we have many problems, right? But I think it is how can I say it, those problem is very important because it leads us to future learning and development.
Yeah. Thank you. So you mentioned that you sort of like realize that these situations, even as a musician, there's a lot of things to learn, right? Within this kind of like space. And so it's almost like exploring a new sonic possibilities for you as well. Thank you. And Beam Sirapop, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, for me.
Yes, please.
All the things that I have experienced is kind of like a rediscovery for listening. It's kind of like a listening exercise to listen to something that normally have occurred in your daily life. Mine is like the metal cutting sound that woke me up like every morning, like yeah, across my house is like a lot of noises that still musical. It's like there's a shape, tension, noises, and a lot of like harmonic series that happening at that time.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So it's kind of like rediscovering even the beauty in the most ugly kind of sounds, right?
Yes.
Even those sounds that really kind of like drive us crazy. Then when you listen attentively, then there's things to be discovered, right?
Yes, I am kind of like a sensitive listener. Like I cannot listen to like a lot of loud noises, but this one like made me think. Like let me listen to like a lot of how to say, like dynamics, a lot of shape, a lot of gesture that happens in many sounds that happen.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kasirapop.
Thank
So
you.
I guess it's ขอบคุณค่ะ. So I think it's possibly if responding to the theme of British Council about the idea of resilience. I guess what do you think, Ajahn Piyawat, from what you heard from the students and my young colleagues here for their response? What do you think? Is there anything they'd like to add on this?
Yes, definitely. So what I heard from like students and also like your colleagues is about like something like very personal, something like came from like your house, came from your identity, came from your environment surrounded you. So my question would be, how those things impact to your sonic imagination? You know what I mean? Like, because like most of the time, like as a composer, as artists, we always like get inspiration. We always get influence from something around us, right? So then like life around is a kind of like nice title too. So I'm just curious, like how would you imagine like for the future, like what are you guys thinking about, how would you take this experience to create you know, like kind of like sound art, like composition, or like any format of like what are experiences that you gain from now, and what you are expect to do for the next step? So that the first thing. And also the second thing I would ask, like how would you feedback to Anothai? That would be the second thought from me. Like first, how would you use it, like from your experience, like doing these things? And also the second thing, how would you feedback to the composer? Or it doesn't have to be like a general suggestion, but maybe just your like imagination, you know, that I think
what would you
that
like to see next? What would you like to see next? Something like that. What would you like to change or see next? I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
You can combine. In Thai, it's fine.
So I think Sakda has something to say, but but you can say in Thai too, and I help you and translate.
ครับได้ครับคือผมคิดว่าเพลงนี้ถ้าส่วนตัวผมเนี่ยผมคิดว่าค่อนข้างที่จะมันค่อนข้างที่จะสวยงามครับแต่ว่าคือถ้าเป็นเสียงในชีวิตรอบตัวเนี่ยมันอาจจะมีเสียงที่มันเป็นค่อนข้างจะอึดอัดหรือว่าบีบมากกว่านี้ใช่คือว่าทุกอย่างมันค่อนข้างจะในมูดที่มันโทนสวยงามอาจจะมองได้แค่มุมเดียวว่าชีวิตเราอาจจะมีแค่ด้านนี้หรือเปล่าบางทีอาจจะถ้าเพิ่มเสียงที่มันเป็นไม่ใช่เสียงที่มันสวยงามอย่างนี้เข้าไปมันอาจจะเพิ่มมิติได้มากกว่านั้นใช่ครับพอถ้าเอาเสียงแต่ว่าถ้าเป็นประสบการณ์หรือว่าที่ได้จากเล่นเพลงนี้ผมคิดว่าอาจจะได้การเรื่องของการฟังซะมากขึ้นเพราะว่าเสียงแอมเบียนต์รอบข้างเนี่ยพอมันไปอยู่รวมกันอย่างเงี้ยผมคิดว่ามันค่อนข้างที่จะเกิดสิ่งใหม่ๆขึ้นมาได้เยอะพอสมควรแต่ถ้าเอาไปประยุกต์กับการเป็นเพอร์ฟอร์มด้วยเนี่ยอาจจะทำให้เราใช้พวกแอเรียต่างๆเนี่ยสนับสนุนในการเพอร์ฟอร์มเราได้มากขึ้น
ขอบคุณครับ Thank you. Would you like to translate?
Yes.
I actually have answers. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I have one response to the metal cutting sound, but translate first.
Okay, sure. Let me just translate the Sakda's thought. So, like, basically, it's a great. Like, first of all, he has a compliment, like, to your work a lot, Anothai, and like about like the beauty of like natural sound, right? The natural sound has like the impact to our brain, our feeling, our emotion, which I think you found that it is not pretentious, right? Because like sometimes when we do composition, we have kind of like compress them, like choose some material, take them, boom, like cooking, right? So but here it's a kind of like good situation, like kind of like a proper situation that that we make ourselves more transparent, right? To receive sound through ourselves. So I think that's a very good point. Like, to maybe we can perform sound from the transparency, right? So I think that's a good word. So Anothai, do you have any response to that?
Yes, there's one thing that I quite like. I really love your remarks, and that's precisely on the point. There's another thing that I mentioned is the idea that even all these supposedly ugly sound, like the metal cutting, and it still sound too beautiful. I absolutely agree with you, because at the time that I was working on serial pop sounds on metal cutting, I spent 2 hours trying to make it beautiful. So I was trying to actually shape it in a way that it will sound more like an ambience, more of the, how do you call, the reverb of it, but not the actual cutting sound. So that was intentional. And now that you mentioned, so you picked exactly right at the things that I was trying to do. I guess it was I have a feeling that I always have a good experience with sound, but not I quite like the audience, because the piece itself, first, I wouldn't like to call it my piece, because it's really a collaborative work between all of the faces here that sort of like contribute into composing this piece. But how I sort of like being an arranger for this piece, I wanted to sort of like reveal another side of the sound to people. So even the metal cutting sound can be beautiful, and you can hear the ugly sounds always. But I wanted to just a side of like show another side of it. So that was intentional. And I agree with you that the piece is a bit too beautiful than usual. And actually all the sounds has been made with this intention. So right on the point. A for you. Great. That's wonderful. Those are wonderful remarks. It is, yes. And I guess maybe another thing that I'd like to add is that from my experience, that I sort of like take from this as a student, from this experience, that I find that a lot of piece when we listen to electroacoustic music, I always enjoy being a listener and being immersed into those kind of sound. But sometimes I quite like to make some sound. I always kind of like secretly moving my fingers on certain surface, wanting to participate in those sounds. And I think this piece has been sort of like my attempt to give other people to participate in making all these kind of sounds together as well. So it is a little bit of a community piece. That's why hence the title Live Around, Live Around, and hence the participations of everyone's here. And still back to your questions, Piyawat, about the so how would you guys like to continue using this experience in your future music performances or music creation? Anyone?
Yeah, I
Yes, please.
actually learn a lot about like when we're doing the soundscapes. All the things is happen with the texture and musical structure, and this point is the main idea of a lot of classical music, or like for like any music, that kind of important. And we have tried, like we all have tried with Anothai, like to play and improvise it. It's kind of vague, but it has the sense that we need to improvise it on time and keep the texture to be harmonious in some way. And like, yeah, that's the important thing that I learned.
Do you have any specific examples, like how do you create like harmonies or
It's like we all need to listen to each other, like everybody, like what do they playing right now, and like find the right tracks that we should fit in, and like create a structure from it. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, thank you very much. I think that's a great observation. I just think about there's a great potential to perform by being listener, you know, like it's most of the time we are doing one direction, like, oh, we are performer, we perform sound, right? But this time we act as listener by just clicking sound, and then we listen to somebody else and try to, you know, manage the proximity, let's say, proportion, you know, time, color, gesture that we pick from the tracks, each tracks, right? So I think it's a kind of retrogression thoughts, like between like being audience, being performer. So I think this is cool. So Anothai, do you have any reflection on that, like how, or you said, when you said like experimentation at the beginning, it seems like you have another plan, right?
Yes.
Always, right? Okay.
Always. At first, this is already the third version that we try. Actually, all these young fellows here, they all wrote a short fragments accompanying all these sounds. For example, Patharapon wrote a quartet accompanying the sounds that he was given. And it was really quite amazing that those sounds can fit together with a quartet. Which instruments were you having? Like 3 strings or 2 flute, right?
Yes, there is flute, tuba, strings. String is violin and viola. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And it works very well with the sounds, the length of sound, and how the texture change. And he made all these kind of textures. So I would the reason why I call it sort of like experiments, because it's the things that we try together as a group of people here. And we're trying to be a listener. We try to sort of like make sense of it. In terms of as a classical musicians would do, that we try to bring out pitch, the rhythm, and all those kind of things. And then at the end, we just sort of like, okay, let it go and reduce to start and stop and dynamics, and that's it. So it's a little bit of journey for everyone, including me. That would be something I would take as a student. Yes, I also learned. Thank you, our teacher. And so what is your experience? Because I know that at first we try performing this piece in the physical space, like 8 people sitting together with me as a 9 people sitting right in the middle, and then we hear this all together in the same space. And then when we translate it into the virtual space in which we have to perform through we have to be at the mercy of internet, in which one of our players cannot join in today because he couldn't get in into the system, even though they are in the same room. But so this is quite interesting in a way that you can be in the same physical space, but you might not be in the same virtual space. So this can be quite interesting in the future to explore. Anything you'd like to add, Piyawat?
Just waiting.
I give you a lot of homework.
just waiting if or some of the performers who perform, like do you have maybe we can talk about the sound too, you know, like how each sound react to each other, right? Because we have been talking a lot about, you know, like the concept about the, like, just like transparency. I just wanted to say it again. So, but like maybe we can talk about like the metal cut sound, like, the glass breaking, like the door, window, wind, construction, like how, just talk about the sound, right? Like what are those qualities? Like maybe you can just say like how does it reflect to your own personal performances, like your own like languages. So like if you guys have any reflection on that, that would be good. Just an open question.
As a musicians, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
In Thai, if you wish, or in English, you guys are fine.
ทุกคนเข้าใจไหมครับหมายถึงว่าเราพูดในเชิงที่ว่าเราลองพูดกันถึงเรื่องเสียงกันบ้างเนาะเราอย่าเพิ่งเหมือนเราพูดกันคอนเซ็ปต์มาเยอะแล้วถ้าเราพูดเรื่องเสียงว่าเฮ้ยไอเสียงที่เราได้ยินเนี่ย construction เนี่ยมันสื่อถึงอะไรได้บ้างหรือว่ามันสะท้อนอะไรกับเสียงที่เราเล่นบ้างเช่นสมมุตินะถ้าพี่เป็นศักดาอย่างเงี้ยพี่ก็จะรู้สึกว่าไอเสียงที่มันมี reverb บางอย่างเนี่ยมันคล้ายๆกับทูบ้าใช่ไหมครับมันคล้ายๆกับมันสะท้อนไปถึงว่าเอ้ยซาวเนี่ยมันมีความใกล้เคียงกันมิติของมันอะไรอย่างเงี้ยคือถ้ามีใครที่มีความรู้สึกแบบไหนอยากจะให้สะท้อนออกมาในด้านเสียงนะครับ
งั้นผมพูดแล้วกันนะผมคิดว่าในเพลงทั้งหมดเนี่ยทุกอย่างมันค่อนข้างที่จะล็อกซาวด์เพราะเหมือนกับลูกบิดนะฮะเพราะว่าต่อให้มันเป็นซาวด์ที่มันไม่มีเสียงตายตัวแต่ว่าทุกอย่างมันค่อนข้างที่จะมีจังหวะของมันเองใช่มันเหมือนกับเป็นลูกบิดสำหรับผมคิดว่าเหมือนกับลูกบิดที่มันเป็นต่อกันไปต่อให้เหมือนใช่ครับลูกบิดคือถึงมันจะเหมือนกับว่าบางครั้งอาจจะไม่ลงก็จริงแต่ว่ามันเข้ากันได้ใช่ครับค่อนข้างแต่ละซาวด์นี่อาจจะถ้าผมไม่ได้สำหรับผมไม่ได้มองว่ามันเป็นเสียงของเครื่องดนตรีเท่าไหร่ใช่มันอาจจะผมมองว่ามันเป็นตัวต่อของกันและกันซะมากกว่าครับ
I think we got a kind of a hint, right? A hint about the jigsaws, right? So like Sagda, think about each sound. It's a kind of jigsaw for each other, right? Like when you place with each kind of like blocky in a way, like when it connect. So when you connect one to another, you get another path, right? So like it's a kind of like creating structure, like someone said before, right? Like creating the musical proportion. So and then we start to add materials, right? We start to elaborate with them. So by listening, so that I think that's a wonderful means at least. So Anothai, do you have any kind of conclusion like for this session? So maybe we can just like try to reflect on what we have been talking and also what is your next thoughts, like what would you like to improve this, what would you like to transform this to another format. So
so maybe just start from your last questions. This is sort of like my first attempt trying to, because I always work co-composing with community, with people who are non-musicians, but this is sort of like my first attempt using all these digital medium, trying to get the ideas of co-compositions to work together. And I at first we were trying to do all these live improvisations, but it's not as easy as we thought due to a lot of restrictions. But so this is sort of like, I wouldn't like to call it compromise, but it is sort of like intentional. I'm not sure if that's what exists, that is intentionally intentionally make it sort of like a compromise that this is the format that we want to perform it this time. But in the future, I would like to explore further of if we want to kind of like co-compose, perform using all these kind of digital medium in a way that not only people who are fluent in electroacoustic music, but people who sort of like us here, that is kind of like classical performers, but sort of like first time connecting all these sound card and everything together. How can we sort of like start making all these kind of musics that not only involve physical instruments, but also this kind of thing as well. So that would be the first things that I would like to explore after this, to continue to find ways to make it possible. And yeah, I'd already forgot the first question. Sorry.
That's great. It reminds me one another thing before we move to another session.
Yeah.
So I think we found resilience here, right?
Now remember.
We do we start to set up things at 10 o'clock, right? And then
Yes.
it works. It worked somehow, like 10:55, 56, 57, like countdown. We kind of like final countdown. So it's a kind of like we have to adapt a lot. It's like we have a wheel to do. We have we prepare, but somehow like resilience needs time, needs some
positivity.
Space. Positivity.
And need positivity. It is, I think that's very much.
Time plus positivity. And also the way to reflect ourselves a lot, right? Like how we can across what we think, right? So I think it happens to even a classical musician as well. Like when you prepare a lot of things, but when you try to perform, maybe you get only like 10%, let's say 20%. I don't know, maybe this is cheesy to compare, but still I just found like it's very fragile, right? Like in terms of like regarding what we are doing, COVID situation. So it's a very good good time to do this resilience things. So yeah, I think it's
one thing. Now I know how to answer your first questions. Now getting back on the point. Yes. So it's the idea of resilience that you mentioned. I think what's important is the idea that you have to embrace the unforeseen. Actually, we sort of like our system work at 55. We actually communicate in a messenger group saying that I'm hoping that it will work at 59. So we already earlier than we expected. So in some way, I guess the ideas of resilience has to do with how to embrace the unforeseen and being able to cling on something and learn along the way that you make all these mistakes and when errors keep hitting you. So I guess that's one of the things that I would say it is a quality for being resilient, I think. And this guy has been very patient in that. So thank you very much.
Be positive. So great. I think this have been a great discussion so far. So I would like just to end this very last session, because we have the real last for the next couple 10 minutes. So yeah, so thank you very much for all of you. Thank you very much, Anothai, for sharing us this amazing work. I hope we should do it more. Maybe like after this project, it doesn't have to be like busy, but we can always do, resilience occasion. Yeah.
We already busy. We can do AC next.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you ขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบคุณครับ
and good night
Have a good night but still we have another show so just be
yes
with
we
us
are yes sure
ขอบคุณครับทุกคน
thank you ขอบคุณ
มากๆ
ค่ะ
ครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดี
ขอบคุณ
ครับ
ค่ะ
ขอบคุณครับ
ค่ะขอบคุณค่ะ